Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, the Red Raiders look to stop the bleeding as they hit the road for two straight. First up, the Duchendorf Cup. We're into it next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And today's episode brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Take the Nissan Rogue, Pathfinder, or Armada and go find your next big adventure. Check them all out today at NissanUSA.com. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you. We're wrapping up the week, looking ahead to the weekend and looking ahead even beyond the weekend to the future. Some further interesting college football playoff developments, scenarios being discussed. We'll get into some of that, what it could mean for the Big 12 Conference, obviously Texas Tech, and we're getting set for the Duchendorf Cup. Round ball variety, the battle for John Denver's soul. It's Texas Tech and West Virginia from Morgantown coming up this weekend as the Red Raiders hit the road for a couple of back-to-backs and trying to bounce back after a two-game skid here. You fall last time you leave home, and then, of course, an emotional loss as you are dropped by the Longhorns earlier in the week on your home floor. I don't know that I would have anticipated, Chris, getting up to this ball game against West Virginia and then Oklahoma State on the other side, feeling like the stakes were so high, and maybe it somewhat is internal or just emotionally based and really wanting to bounce back, but the stakes do feel pretty high as far as what's on the line over these next couple of ball games.
Yeah, I was asked a question after the Kansas win. You won by 29, but you also kind of seen Warren Washington get dinged up. Would you take, from that point on, you had 7 conference games left, would you take a 3-4 finish? And I said yes. And I'm like, because I knew doing the math, I was like, that guarantees you in the tournament and in a I think a plus conference record and all those things. And I was heavily criticized for said answer because, like, come on, man, we get do a lot more than that. Well, since that, you're 1-3. And you would have to win 2 of the final 3 games to finish 3-4. Hence the reason that I kind of answered it that way. But this isn't just not going to be easy. Neither one of these are. I don't know the status of Warren for tomorrow. I'm hopeful. I think he's been really close. West Virginia, while they are the worst team in the league standings wise, they also have beaten Kansas, Texas, Cincinnati, and Central Florida all at home. And you've had a hard time with some of these teams as recently as this past Tuesday night and past Saturday, 2 of those 3. And so they've got some nice pieces, but yeah, there's some sense of urgency here, and that's why I think Grant was so emphatic on, as much as this sucks the other night after the loss, so that we have to move on. We've got to keep pushing and plan for more. But there's a couple of scorers planned for West Virginia that could make things difficult if they have one of those nights, Callan.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And typically, I don't know what to expect as far as this go round, but typically a fairly hostile environment there in Morgantown. I know you mentioned that a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about road settings. May depend on what they're cooking with as far as the season is concerned. Never an easy road trip, just logistically, as far as the distance that you've got to travel either. And I think you pointed out on yesterday's show, or maybe 2 days ago, what they're now doing as far as their front court with some better luck from a health standpoint. That really sounds scary, given what the situation has been with Texas Tech's front court without Warren Washington in the mix.
Yeah, I think they've been averaging a little over 10,000 a game, and they are loyal. They're not really playing for anything, although their head coach, Josh Eilert, is basically trying to get his guys in the mindset of there's always these teams that struggle, and they just kind of get hot at the end, and they kind of are bubble busters, or they kind of screw everything up for other teams. and you just kind of see how far you can take it. But, they're not there yet. But Jesse Edwards is who you're talking about. He's 6'11", averages 14 a game. He had a hurt wrist back in the first semester, I guess, if you will, and didn't come back until late December, early January. And so they kind of really, and then even then he wasn't particularly right, but he's long. He will cause some problems. I think he had a 25-point game a couple of weeks ago. And I'll tell you who the scariest guy is for this West Virginia team. And he is ground zero for the NCAA case as it relates to every transfer being eligible immediately back in late December. Remember when the day of the bowl game, and it's like you get this press release like AJ McCarty is going to be eligible because of this court case, was like, and everybody that had been sitting out at that time was like, hey man, for a couple of weeks, everybody's eligible. Do what you want. And then they came back and were like, you know what? As a matter of fact, just everybody's good for the remainder of time. Like you can play in college as long as you want. Not really, but for the rest of this year anyway. Raekwon Battle for West Virginia is the face of that movement. He is basically one of the main reason that case was, pursued and passed and fought and all that. He transferred from Montana State, claimed a lot of mental health issues, and was very outspoken about the NCAA and all that stuff. Well, they caved. But he's averaging 16 a game. And, he missed the first couple of months of their season as well. And he went for like 25 the other night in Manhattan, Kansas. He's somebody that will turn it over a lot. If he gets it, he's not passing it. It's just he's going to score. And if he's having one of those nights, look out. So this is just – there's some pieces here that make you nervous. And I don't know – you're right. Crowd-wise, I know what's been happening. I don't know if it continues. It's been very difficult for Texas Tech to go win up in Morgantown, even when you've had really good teams. So shenanigans have happened up there. It's just not an easy place for you to go play. But you need a win, man. You're on that 7 seed line according to the most bracket folks that are out there. But there's an arrow pointing down next to your name because you've lost 3 or 4. And, you need to get that stopped and get a couple of wins here at least to finish out the regular season to get to 500 and maybe even, move above it. But you've been hovering here for what appears to be a while. And there are no gimmies left. People may think West Virginia and Oklahoma State, no problem. I mean, go look at the track records of your school playing at either one of these places. There's a handful of wins only up there, and it's just not going to be easy, especially if you're dinged up, and I'm not sure the status of the big fellow there.
Well, and it's another situation that it's all on you as far as the resume impact of the teams you're facing, much like Central Florida or even Texas, obviously with West Virginia, Oklahoma State. I mean, these are not games you want to slip up on because regardless of where you are, contextually from a health standpoint or what your team actually is doing right now, as far as the resumes go, these are ones that you are, I guess, expected to handle technically. I wouldn't say that necessarily from a favorite or underdog standpoint, but and I don't mean it to suggest there's like nothing to gain, everything to lose. There's plenty to gain for Texas Tech, but I hope it makes sense that from a resume standpoint,
it only hurts you. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. It only like the data, like if Calvin, I think the net ranking, let me make sure I have it written down here somewhere. It's like, and I think West Virginia is like 176 or something like that. Yours is like 40-ish, 44, 42, somewhere. It changes slightly daily. But again, not an easy win to go get because West Virginia is like 111 in quad 1 games, and they've got a handful of quad 2 wins. I think against those other conference teams like the Texas, Central Floridas, and Cincinnati's, their Kansas game is their one quad 1 win. But the rest of their data is just bad. So when you mix in a loss there, your resume is going to take a serious hit. What you're suggesting is even if you win, it doesn't really help your resume. So it's kind of a tricky game, but again, it can really hurt you, and so you're trying to avoid the wound here. But you just need a win. You just need to go shoot it well, get back in a rhythm, get the bad taste out of last Tuesday night out of your mouth, and just kind of, create some doubt early, play well, shoot it well, and see what happens. Because I think these are teams that if you play well early and you really show we're here and you keep fighting, that they can kind of tendency to fold or make a mistake and go, okay, what are we doing? This isn't even worth it. We're not going anywhere. Not that they will, but there's some teams in past that like this that have operated that way, and maybe you find yourself in those kinds of scenarios. But you have to play well in order to get that done.
Yeah, I want to demoralize them, but unfortunately, it's been Texas Tech that's been demoralized in some recent outings. So you're trying to flip that script. And speaking of scripts, you're trying to flip. You already mentioned him in Warren, Washington, and I was curious. Going back to the last time that we saw him on the floor about a week ago, briefly. Do you think that was something that set you back further? Him giving it a go that day, did it disrupt the timeline or delay the timeline even more? Was it just a day where they thought, okay, this is not going to go well, so let's not push it any further? What do you think the impact of actually seeing him on the floor last weekend was, if any? First, today's episode brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Well, our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level and beyond. Like with the 2024 Nissan Rogue, perfect for city drives or great escapes. It's the best midsize crossover for any adventure. Or Nissan's incredible lineup that also includes the 2024 Pathfinder, 284 horsepower and up to 6,000 pounds towing. When adventure calls, the Pathfinder is going to be there to answer. Or how about the 2024 Armada? Tow bigger and explore further with the Nissan Armada. So take the Rogue, Pathfinder, or Armada and go find your next big adventure today. Shop NissanUSA.com. You already mentioned him in Warren, Washington. And I was curious, going back to the last time that we saw him on the floor about a week ago, briefly, do you think that was something that set you back further? Him giving it a go that day, did it disrupt the timeline or delay the timeline even more? Was it just a day where they thought, okay, this is not going to go well, so let's not push it any further? What do you think the impact of actually seeing him on the floor last weekend was, if any?
It's a valid question to ask, and I think maybe I think they were hopeful, and I think they realized fairly, into that game, it's just like, okay, it's not going to happen. And Grant indicated the other day that he had ridden a bike at some point earlier in the day of the game, and I don't know what he's done since. But I mean, I don't know if anybody's going to say, yeah, we shouldn't have done it or we made it worse. But I think that, maybe it was a bit premature. But that's what they were working toward. I mean, that's what they've kind of talked about publicly. So, we'll get a better indication here. But it's a tough little stretch here because, like, as much as you've watched, like, Robert Jennings, Kyron Lindsey, and Emily Yalaho try to guard some of these post players like a Dessou or Jesse Edwards, I don't know if that trio can really guard him one-on-one. I think these post players are better than what you're trying to trot out there. That's just the harsh reality of it right now. Doesn't mean you don't quit trying, and I think sometimes you can get them or you can force a miss or whatever, but there's a lot of post ISO plays that we're starting to see now because they're picking on your undersized post guys or their young post guys or undisciplined post guys, however you want to phrase it. And so that's why, and so much of your offense runs through Warren with the high pick and roll and all those things. But, I mean, you got Jesse Edwards Saturday, tomorrow, and then you've got Brandon Garrison, who's a McDonald's All-American that's a freshman for Oklahoma State that has gotten worlds better as the season has gone along since the first time you saw those guys. So that's your challenge in the post the next couple of games. So, and then Yev Misi for Baylor the next time. So, I mean, it's like –
oh, good.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't stop,
Right.
So hence the reason that we miss Vlad Goldin and Russ Chewa and Daniel Bacho and Tony Battie and just name them all.
Andy Ellis, Cliff Owens.
Yes. All the above.
Just roll it back as far as you want.
John Ofebu. I mean, I keep going. Yeah.
Hal Storozinski. I don't know how far back we need to go, but Robert Tomacek. We got anybody over in the football building? It's got any hoops experience?
I mean, Mason Tharp could do it. I mean,
Let's go. Sign him up.
I trust 6'9" Mason Tharp.
You got 5 fouls and a pair of elbows. Bring them on.
He can go Joey Hawkins on everybody. If you remember that little football. Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And really the recipe to me, if you're going to be an undersized team going against anybody that's got some size to deal with, take it right to their teeth. And, falling in love with the 3-ball or settling for things from beyond the arc. And I hate to even call it settling because at various points this season, you have been a team that has shot it well. So that's been a weapon for you. But if it was me in the shoes of Grant McCasland, I'd have much nicer shoes on first. But second, I would be telling these guys, take it to their chin. We've got to attack the rim. You got to get to the free throw line. Got to try and get a big man in some foul trouble if you can. Though, again, then this is not the Bob Huggins era anymore. Has never been particularly easy to get West Virginia into foul trouble. And I don't know if it changes from Lubbock to there, but man, these have been some slugfests between these two teams.
Well, and I think it's fascinating that you say that. And he may have a valid point, and we'll see how it plays out. Look, officiating right now in college basketball is a problem. They let a lot go on. The physicality of it is okay, but it's really rough. And there are times when it's a joke what is called like some ticky-tack foul whenever they're just letting a wrestling match go on one end, and it's just not called consistently. But Josh Eilert, the interim coach for West Virginia, he said the other day, we're just not going to get any whistles against the team on the bubble. Like basically insinuating the league or the crew is going to go ahead and get a team into the tournament because, and we're not going. And so that was his insinuation.
Woe was me.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know, but it's officials also know that he's an interim coach. So if they have a bad game or make a bad call, it's like, well, he's not going to be mad at me next year. I don't have to deal
from
with
the Farm Bureau office.
Yeah,
he's going to be calling me or what?
And that's why it puts an interim coach in just a tough spot for a variety of reasons. You're very vulnerable. But yeah, it's not quite like that, like it used to be Huggins, where they just dare you to call it every time down, and they knew you wouldn't. But that's kind of how the whole thing is being played now, man. I mean, it really is. It's wild. Like, it doesn't matter if it's in Morgantown or not. I mean, they allow a lot. They were allowing a lot, a ball pressure at midcourt against Texas Tech's guards the other night. I mean, and you know what? And maybe you just have to adapt to it and do the same. Again, it goes back to consistency, and how this is called in the NCAA tournament is going to be fascinating as well. Do they allow this, or do they say, well, on the West Coast where I've been officiating, you can't do that. You can't get in his face or put your hands on him and all that stuff. Like, that's a foul, whatever. And, so that's also a bit tricky.
I'm going to guess we're in for a rude awakening from a Big 12 perspective as far as some things that are officiated in the NCAA tournament. I don't think it'll go the same route. Just a guess. Time will tell. How do you get your guards out of a funk? And obviously the funkiest one has been Pop Isaacs. I thought there was actually a great suggestion in the YouTube comments. Someone recommended maybe having Pop's eyesight checked. And I thought, man, do we see like a Ricky Vaughn situation? Does he show up with a pair of Buddy Holly specs with skull and crossbones in the middle, and then all of a sudden he's shooting 60% from beyond the arc? I mean, at this point in time, I don't think anything is too crazy to suggest. So maybe be on the lookout for that. But whether it's him or Joe Toussaint, I really wouldn't even put, I don't think, Chance McMillan in that category. And I know Darion Williams is kind of an in-betweener as far as being considered a guard or not. But it is Isaacs 1 and 1A, and it's Toussaint 1B. I wish I had the answer. I wish I had the recipe. I'd give Coach McCasland a call after the show. I do not. But that's one thing that you really got to try to figure out, obviously.
And this is Joe's – we kind of buried the lead here, but this is Joe's return game.
Yep.
I don't know how he will be received. I don't think it was like – I think they wanted to keep him. I think when the coaching change happened, he was just like, man, I just don't know if this is best for me. And I think that some people may feel like he bailed out. I don't know, but obviously made a good choice for himself and thankfully for Texas Tech. But yeah, and so I don't know how he'll be received. We'll have to keep an eye on how he plays and how, all those kinds of things. But then, with Pop, I just appreciate his competitiveness. It's a confidence issue right now, but I mean, he hasn't. Here's what I appreciate. he's getting pushed and shoved and having to carry the load here on a playmaking, ball handling standpoint on a lot of these options down the floor. And games have been a struggle. But it's like if we said this repeatedly, but if he doesn't try to make a play, get a shot up, who is? Because, there's just not enough people on your team that can create their own shot or make a play for somebody else. And I think Pop last year would have kind of had some body language that maybe wouldn't have been good. And again, freshman, or he would have shied away from it. No, man, he just keeps coming at you. He hits an extra gear trying to get downhill. He's still scoring for his team. I think that it's fair to call it inefficient, like on a night like he had the other night where he scores 17 and shoots it 18 times. I get it, but it's like, give me the alternative. I would love to hear somebody like kind of, okay, you want to put Lamar Washington up at the top of the key and say, hey, man, go for it. Like you start heaving them up or you create for somebody else. It ain't happening, and Joe's trying to do all he can. So it's a tandem. And Chance, as good as Chance is, he's not necessarily an on the ball, create your own. He's more of a catch and shoot guy. He can do some things in transition. But that's just kind of where you're at. And so you kind of have to live with the good with the bad here. But I hope he keeps shooting. And
it kind of goes back to what you've already mentioned several times. Warren Washington being the guy that kind of stirs the drink there in the middle at the top of the key, free throw line, wherever it might be, created some of these open looks that maybe were a little easier to knock down. I don't know how many times, or I'm trying to think, like, when's the last time I recall within a game frequently seeing clean open looks for Isaacs or Tucson or whoever it might be. There's been a hell of a lot more contested, I think, since Washington has not been on the floor as compared to previously. Whatever it adds up to, got to figure it out, and you got to figure it out now on the road. Much easier said than done, but looking forward to seeing what they've got for the boys from West Virginia. We're out of 9 brothers, 10 are a guinea, and that math makes sense down in the coal mine, so don't question me over it. Okay, before we're out of here, Chris, let's switch gears and get into a swirling, and I mean swirling, college football playoff conversation. First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, and the sports calendar keeps turning and the action never stops with America's #1 sportsbook and the official sportsbook of Locked On. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet hits. There are so many ways to spice up any action with their safe, secure, and easy-to-use app. So get to FanDuel.com/lockedon. And if you're a new customer, take advantage of $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet with FanDuel at FanDuel.com/lockedon, official partner of the NBA. Let's switch gears and get into a swirling, and I mean swirling, college football playoff conversation. This is just like a food fight in a boardroom, I guess, at this point in time. They are battling it out, trying to figure out who's going to get the best seat at the table, who's going to get the most seats at the table, and exactly how are you going to be included at the table whenever the dust settles. And I got to tell you, some of the things that I've seen reported on here this week sound a little bit more favorable for the Big 12 Conference. And I guess you can throw the ACC into that bucket than I previously anticipated. But then there's always another side of the coin. So one of the first things that we saw was going to include, obviously, multiple bids for the Big 10 and the SEC, kind of coming to grips with that probably being a part of this reality to the tune of more than the Big 12 or the ACC. But then we also saw a report of 2 automatic qualifying bids for the Big 12, for the ACC. Get your attention, perk you up a little bit. And then there was some talk as well about, and this one didn't sit so favorably with you and I don't think, some talk about the Big 10 and the SEC, say the top 2 from those conferences having like first round or second round buys, not even playing the game to begin the college football playoff. None of this obviously written in stone yet, has not been decided upon, but some of the trend lines I'm liking towards where we're headed. Some of them I'm a little bit concerned about, and something that just cracks me up in general about it is, 100+ years to get to a playoff in general, it stunk. And then we finally get to, okay, well, let's do a 12-team playoff. And I like that right now we're just kind of patting that 12-teamer on the head like, oh, you're cute. Okay, what about the 14-teamer, 16-teamer? We're just zooming right past it, man. A whole lot to process this week.
Well, you're going to get change. You're going to get it soon. The ESPN is kind of holding your feet to the fire right now on trying to get a deal done, but they want to know what they're paying for, and you're trying to get, everybody's trying to get what they want. When you first see the 3-3-2-2 kind of scenario with the Big Ten and the SEC each getting 3 automatic bids. And the Big 12 and the ACC each get 2 automatic bids. And then there's like the group of 5 and then 3 at-larges, which basically one of those is a placeholder for Notre Dame, theoretically. I think you as a Big 12, I think you look at that part and go, absolutely, let's do it. I mean, in a 12-team scenario, you were highly unlikely, not impossible, but you're highly unlikely to get a second team in other than your automatic qualifier. And I think in a 14-team scenario, when we all know the Big Ten and the SEC, they're trying to tilt it. They're trying to, alter it. They want more money out of this. They want more control. They want more power and able to govern the powers that be because they feel like they can run this show. And so, but a 3-3-2-2, I'm thinking if you're the Big 12, I'm like, okay, I may publicly complain about it, but privately I'm like, hell yeah, man, let's roll. I'm good. I don't know all the other dynamics, but then you get the rest of the story. Like I find it humorous that one model also being discussed is those two, the SEC, the Big Ten, they're going to get the all 4 buys. They're just going to get a free pass. And I'm thinking, if I'm Brett Yormark, I'm like, okay, well, do our top, 6 teams in the NCAA tournament, can we just give them a pass to the second round? I mean, that part was weird. I mean, I guess they're trying to ensure, longevity in this deal. We feel like we've earned. That's the crazy thing is like if you're the league that you think you are, why do you need a bye? I mean, but yeah, I would. If I was Yormark, I'd definitely be playing the basketball equivalent on the other side. I know these are apples and oranges in some ways, but that part, I'm like, if I was the Big 12, I'd be like, no, man, no, I appreciate it. But, and so I don't know, this is going to be a giant argument and somebody, you're going to have to give a little, get a little. I don't know how this is going to go, but it'll be decided fairly soon because ESPN wants an answer pretty quick here, and I say pretty quick is in like next 2 to 3 weeks, and they're only going to wait so long. So I don't know how much you're willing to give and take, and how much you really want to get. There's a lot of negotiation going on here, but we shall see.
I got to tell you, I'm just excited as a college football fan. I don't even have like the self-interest part of this because the team that I root for hadn't even been close enough to sniff any of this stuff previously. So I really don't like take it so personally from like a tech perspective, like, oh, we're getting, shafted here. You got to win some games before you can even get to the point of being shafted. Obviously that would be an improvement, but as a college football fan, bigger, badder, better. College football postseason is on the way, including some on-campus ball games. I think it's going to be awesome whenever they finally do sort it out. We got to wade through the muck of these warring self-interests to get there, but after a century plus, we will finally get there, and we're going to do it, like every other category of football on earth has done it all along. What a sight to behold. It doesn't have to be 4D underwater chess to figure out an FBS subdivision. That's redundant, I know, national champion. So I think as far as a fan is concerned, a consumer is concerned, it's going to be better eventually, but it could be a lot of fun just to watch them sort all this out. Let us know in the YouTube comments what you're liking or disliking so far about what you heard.
Yeah, and the thing about automatic bids and the way the money is going to be distributed is like, if you take too many hits, like, please just let us be a part of this thing. We don't care how. Like, you just take on so much bad perception of your league being less than.
And less money.
It's less money, less entry, less chance to succeed if you do make it. And it's what I finish the show with on most days. Shame on me for the days that I don't. But it's like, it kills a lot of hope when you just take on so much when you're made to, whether it's financial or just the way that it's set up. I mean, it's very difficult it would be to succeed if you make it in this deal anyways. But if you're just telling me I'm starting this season and it's like, if things go perfectly for us and we have one of those years like an 08, there's just not a lot of hope to have it mean anything. And that's the hard part for me. If you start giving up buys to the other leagues that haven't even earned them just because they're trying to, noogie you, a little bit. And like, so that part, maybe it's just a perception thing as much as anything, but it's going to involve a lot of money here. And
it matters.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And all those things. So I'm just about keeping hope alive, man. That's what I want. So I'm fighting for hope.
Man. Well, take some of that with you to Morgantown, West Virginia. RIP to the Gandy Candy. Enjoy it there, Chris. Life is older than the trees is what I hear.
They are famous for their pepperoni rolls up there.
Is that right?
Yes.
Totinos?
No, different kind. This is actually a real, like, Google it. They have a special bakery, and there's others that are kind of knockoff versions, but no, they're pepperoni rolls. They sell them in the stadium. Pretty fascinating little concoction there. But
good to know.
That's what Morgantown rolls with. So,
well, safe travels, my man. Make it back to God's country, and we'll chop it up on the other side. Appreciate the time all week.
Absolutely. Talk to you early next week. Guns up, and that hope. It is alive.
That's right.
And so are pepperoni rolls in Morgantown. Right. They are alive as well. I may indulge.
Appreciate you guys being out there. I hope you're subscribed on YouTube. If not, get that way or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. And we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.